Okay, I think we've passed kneeling.
Former Miami Dolphins coach Brian Flores is suing the NFL and 3 teams, claiming, quote, in certain critical ways, the NFL is racially segregated and is managed much like a plantation.
This truly feels like an industry-shaking moment.
I think everyone knows what the issue is, and we're done with that.
His lawsuit claims the NFL has failed to create a fairer hiring process. Quote, nothing has changed. In fact, the racial discrimination has only been made worse by the NFL's disingenuous commitment to social equity.
Where we have seen the abhorrent hiring practices from the National Football League.
I want to be held to a higher standard. I'm not even going to say higher standard. I want to be held accountable.
I'm very comfortable talking about race.
Yeah.
I have all my life.
70% of NFL players are black, but there are no black owners, and after Flores' firing, only 1 black head coach.
I understand that, and, we've moved on here.
Last week, I interviewed for the Giants position. I was set to interview on Thursday, the Monday prior. Before I interviewed, I received a text message from Bill Belichick saying congratulations on the Giants, essentially congratulations on the Giants job. There was a little bit of back and forth.
We have the text messages there on the screen.
Yeah, there was some back and forth and
some confusion because you haven't sat down with the Giants yet.
I have not sat down with the Giants. There was some back and forth, and I asked him, "Is you talking to the right Brian?"
And now it appears we have legitimate proof of the sham hiring process.
As you've seen through the text messages, he was actually thought he was texting Brian Daboll.
We, the National Football League, believe Black Lives Matter.
Daboll, who coached under Belichick from 2013 to 2018, was recently named head coach of the New York Giants. They have never had a black coach in their team's history. In addition, there are more allegations that must be addressed by the NFL. Stephen Ross, owner of the Miami Dolphins, is a man who claims he cares about social justice but throws fundraisers for Donald Trump. Flores alleges the following.
You make claims that you were offered $100,000 for each game this team lose, subsequently to get a better draft pick.
I didn't grow up with a lot. This game, changed my life. So to attack the integrity of the game, that's what I felt was happening in that instance, and I wouldn't stand for it.
And that was Dolphins owner Stephen Ross.
Yes.
Sadly, this could be the most serious allegation that makes the NFL force Ross's hand to potentially sell the team, which I'm sure Dolphins fans would love. First things first. Here are the text messages we learned of. Bill Belichick did not realize he was talking to Brian Flores, who worked under him for 10 years with the Patriots, and not Brian Daboll, another former assistant. This gives credence to the sham of the Rooney Rule process. If unfamiliar, the Rooney Rule started in 2003. It states teams during the interview for the process of openings with their teams, they must interview 1 minority candidate for the following positions: GM, team president, head coach, assistant coach. The rule, however, has 2 fatal flaws. The temptation to substitute sham interviews in place of a search for real diversity and coordinator-level positions, a crucial step to head coaching jobs, are not under the umbrella, wrote the Undefeated's Jason Reed in 2016. Many former players, like 2-time Super Bowl winner Bryant McFadden, a former co-worker of mine, had this to say, because he has simply seen enough.
We talk about this every offseason. Every offseason. The hiring process, the Rooney Rule, I love the Rooneys. But they need to do away with the Rooney Rule, because now all it does is basically waste quality candidates when it comes to being African American. You're wasting their time because you're bringing them in only to fulfill a requirement, an obligation. The text messages between Bill Belichick and Brian Flores proved that.
Via the Institute for Diversity and Ethics in Sport, the NFL scored their lowest point total in 15 years for diverse hiring practices in 2019. There was some promise with David Culley inheriting a laughably bad Houston Texans team and having by all means a successful season. And guess what? He was let go from that position. But let's go back to Stephen Ross, owner of the Miami Dolphins. In Flores' lawsuit, he and his team wrote that Ross offered him $100,000 per loss so they could get their number 1 overall pick in the following year's draft. And here's the other thing. If he were to comply with this, what would have happened? He would have got fired for having a bad record. The GM, Chris Greer, told Flores Ross was mad that he had been winning games and that he was, quote, compromising the team's draft position. Apart from the systemic racism, wrote the Nation's Dave Zirin, what stands out in the Flores lawsuit is an NFL franchise owner was basically offering money to Brian Flores to throw games. If true, he should be shoeless Joe Jackson out of the league without delay, which is a reference to the Black Sox scandal that plagued Major League Baseball. Don't forget, Ross was crowned by the Miami Herald as a, quote, progressive owner whose RISE project, Ross Initiative in Sports for Equality, was created to eliminate racial discrimination, champion social justice, and improve race relations. Then there's the Players Coalition, a group founded by selective NFL players and league owners because they needed a diversion from the exiling of Colin Kaepernick.
The Players Coalition is an NFL-funded subversion group, so that's why I remove myself from them, and I'll keep moving forward with Colin.
In effect, the NFL donated $89 million to various organizations. Stephen Ross was an original member before leaving in 2019, but hey, at least he donated $13 million to help end racism in sports. Fun fact, by the way, Josh McCown, ex-quarterback with 0 head coaching experience, was in the Players Coalition. You may know him as a finalist for the Houston Texans coaching job, which we already spoke of with David Culley. Speaking of the coalition, Malcolm Jenkins was the face of it, remember? He did interview after interview promoting it.
When Malcolm called me on the phone and asked if the NFL made a donation to the Players Coalition, would that be enough for me to stop protests? He then asked me, well, how much would it take? So I ended that conversation. That weekend, Malcolm stopped protesting. He said that it was time for everybody to stop protesting. He didn't protest the rest of the year. The following May, the NFL and the Players Coalition finalized and announced their deal, and within 24 hours of that, the NFL changed the policy on the national anthem.
Yet it appears his aligning with the coalition was indeed a front. Also named in the suit, by the way, is the Denver Broncos, specifically then GM John Elway and President/CEO Joe Ellis. It states the pair showed up an hour late to the interview, appearing completely disheveled after drinking the night before. Quote, it was clear from the substance of the interview that Mr. Flores was interviewed only because of the Rooney Rule. They ended up hiring Vic Fangio, phenomenal defensive coordinator, not a good head coach, also white guy. I understand that I may be risking coaching the game that I love and has done so much for me and my family. My sincere hope is that by standing against the systemic racism in the NFL, others will join me to ensure that positive change is made for generations to come. Also in the lawsuit, Flores seeks injunctive relief that includes the following: increase the influence of black individuals in hiring and termination decisions for GM, head coach, offensive and defensive coordinator positions, ensure diversity of ownership by creating and funding a committee dedicated to sourcing black investors to take majority ownership stakes in NFL teams, ensure diversity of decision-making by permitting select black players and coaches to participate in the interviewing process for GM, head coach, offensive and defensive coordinator positions. A really, really big one is this as well, and it's quite simple actually. Transparency. Require NFL teams to reduce to writing the rationale for hiring and termination decisions, including a full explanation of the basis for any subjective influences, trust, personality, interview performance, etc. Require NFL teams to consider side-by-side comparisons of objective criteria, such as past performance, experience, objective qualifications. Create and fund a training program for lower-level black coaches who demonstrate an aptitude for coaching and an interest in advancing to a coordinator position. Incentivize the hiring and retention of black GMs, head coaches, offensive and defensive coordinators through monetary, draft and or other compensation, such as additional salary cap space and complete transparency with respect to all GMs, head coaches, OCs, and DCs. This Brian Flores lawsuit against the NFL is going to resonate throughout sports and be a significant moment in the history of the league. I've spoken to 2 other coaches who believe they have the receipts to be a part of the class. This could be a tsunami before it's all over, wrote Charles Robinson.
The NFL said it will defend, quote, against these claims, which are without merit. Adding the NFL and our clubs are deeply committed to ensuring equitable employment practices.
What I also loved was this tweet from the Nation's Zirin once more, and also this from Howard Bryant.